therefore, Austin, from these discussions where you have great minds, discussing different matters that they're actually very important for Africa, definitely you'll get some answers to put them forward and to push for them. Yeah. And meetings like this where private sector from across Africa and actually outside Africa, they meet and discuss, they share experiences. And these experiences are very important when we talk about issues of job creation.
So welcome to Austin Makani and What Matters. As you may have heard, seen on the social media, Tanzania is honored to host the forthcoming 7th African Social Partners Summit. And this is coordinated by ATE, Association of Tanzania Employers. And with me to speak about this event, the objective, the outcomes, and the way forward is none better person than the CEO of ATE, Madam Suzanne Ndomba. Suzanne, it's truly an honor and thank you for allowing us, Austin with What Matters podcast, to have an interview with you.
Thank you so much, Austin.
Before we go on to the nitty-gritty, Suzanne, maybe my viewers will be very keen to know slightly more about you as a person, the CEO of ATE, such a marvelous, not position, but an organization, and you've been running it for how many years now as the CEO?
Since 2021.
Since October 2021, and were you here working at ATE before?
Yes, I worked at ATE before, leading the legal department.
Okay.
Yeah, for 7 years.
Wow.
9 years, yeah, since 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, so in 2021, the board found fit. After the former CEO retired, and then I was appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Tanzania Employers.
So prior to our discussion on the podcast, the 7th Summit, which you're organizing, and you're the host in Tanzania,
yes.
It's such a privilege for the country, Suzanne. Tell us, you did mention earlier on that women in leadership, women in management, it gives you the energy. How do you feel as a person holding such a high position?
It's actually an honor. There could be I'm sure there will be many other women that could do the job, but it's quite an honor to see that the board found fit for me to run the organization. However, going back to speak on the subject matter of women in leadership, something that I hold very dear to my heart, in the sense that the Association of Tanzania Employers is actually running a program. If you've heard about the Female Future Program, mm-hmm. The Female Future Program is a program that is meant for women and women at workplace, women in the world of work, even women in even the entrepreneurs themselves, in order those who aspire to take the leadership positions, but they would probably in the middle management, senior management, to get into the high positions like in boards or even to lead organizations. So when you talk about the subject matter of women in leadership, you're actually really speaking to one of the things that AT has already been championing. And right now we are actually we're waiting for the graduation for cohort 9.
Wow.
Yeah, that will be happening on the 6th of March 2024. So we have a class of 73 women that will be graduating on the annual leadership conference. So talk about women and leadership. Some of the agenda that we are actually pushing out is women leadership, and through this course we've been able to train women in different courts from private sector and public sector. Yeah.
Other than being your own hero, Suzanne, I believe there's a woman you aspire to be. Other than you being the woman you aspire to be, which other woman in leadership or in the society in general that you look up to and say, wow, I wish I was like her, or I really want to become like her?
Not to name specific which woman would I want to be. I would like to, the authenticity of a Tanzanian woman or an African woman, but also looking at women, in all walks of life, Austin, and I really mean it, women in all walks of life, where they will sit and do and getting up every day to do what they believe in, and also being able to achieve their own agenda. Yes, the system is helping us to get somewhere, but also to aspire themselves to get to a certain level in any walk of life. Mm-hmm. Regardless, it's a very vast subject matter that we can speak about, but for me, I appreciate every woman in all walks of life.
Okay.
So I would aspire to be that woman in my own journey as well.
Allow me to ask you a relatively simple but difficult question. What makes you you?
What makes Suzanne being Suzanne?
Yes, as excellent as you are, the Suzanne. I look at you as an achievement. I look at you as a success. I look at you as an anchor. People looking and saying, "Oh gosh, I want to be Suzanne." So, what makes you you? That inspires or should inspire other young girls to be the next Suzannes.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, thank you for the kind words and that. Maybe I didn't know that much about myself. However, Suzanne is very grounded, and I like to remain to be grounded, in the sense that I like to read a lot of books and different types of books. I read history. I'm a lawyer, but my background is criminal prosecution, so I read a lot of criminal investigation, and so I remain grounded, but I also very much dedicated, at work and also at home and family and the people that were around me. So I try to remain grounded. And remind myself of the, what made me.
All right. Do you do any sporting activities, any routine that you follow? Maybe you go walk or jog in the morning or in the evening?
Austin, I'll be a liar. I don't.
You don't?
I really don't, but I like to do gardening, a little bit of it. Yeah, I just enjoy, touching the mud and lift some little pots here and there. If it's to do a walk, I don't do it religiously, I'll be honest with you. Not very religiously, but whenever I have time, I do go for a walk, a short one. But I love gardening. I love gardening. Yeah.
Interesting. Susan, let's now deep dive a little bit on the African Social Partners Summit.
Yeah.
Tanzania is the host this year, and this is the 7th summit. Do you want to tell us more about the summit?
Yeah, thank you. It's very exciting. It's for the very first time Tanzania gets to host the African Social Partners Summit. And I tell you, this summit, not only in East Africa, this summit it is for the first time in East Africa, and Tanzania getting an opportunity to host it, through the Association of Tanzanian Employers. And ATE is a member of International Organization of Employers. So this summit is held in collaboration with the International Organization of Employers, the European Union, Business Africa, and of course one of our members has actually, some of our members are supporting the summit as well. We have METL as well is supporting, being the main sponsor of the event. So we are looking forward, in the International Labour Organization, we are looking forward to the summit, and the summit will be discussing many agendas. However, job creation being one of the main agenda with different topics into it. But maybe we can also talk about where did this come from? In 2013, the employers and business across Africa, they found it important to push for job creation agenda. So, and therefore, with the European Union and International Labour Organization, they actually agreed to start the African Social Partners Summit. And in December 2015, the African Social Summit had a common vision of transforming the democratic dividends represented by African youth. So the agenda is actually to contribute to the inclusive growth, sustainable development and security of the continent. There will be a lot of topics that we'll be discussing. We'll be discussing industrializations, the future of work, social dialogue, advancement of technology, and in specific AI, artificial intelligence.
Okay.
And you know that the future of work is actually very much affected, different positively and negatively, by the artificial intelligence. It depends on how you look at it, but there is so much positivity into it.
Totally. Yeah. Susan, I'm mesmerized by the agenda that you have. for the forthcoming meeting. But let me understand.
Yeah.
Day in, day out, you look onto the social media, different platforms. There are meetings happening all across the world.
Yes.
In Africa, here at home in Tanzania, all across. How is this summit different from many other summits that are happening across the globe? The ones that you probably attend, the ones you probably do not attend. But how is this specifically different from the rest of the summits?
I can't say how is it going to be different from the rest of the summit, but if we look at the objectives of the summit themselves, identifying emerging trends and challenges in the Africa labor market, looking at the track and progress of concrete commitments at national and regional level in the implementing blueprints for jobs in Africa, and develop additional actionable recommendations to strengthen the implementation. One thing, Austin, that this summit has managed to do previously is to come out with the recommendations and guidelines for employers and business, even the states and regional governments, on issues of job creation, industrialization, and future of work. So we are hoping that on the second day, that will be the 8th, that there will be more discussions on the panel discussions that we'll be having on the 7th. And out of those panel discussions, the social partners, they will be discussing, these are the recommendations that we are taking forward. So from these recommendations, and because there will be representation from social partners, including governments, meaning, from there, then we'll be taking forward to discuss in different platforms, how can Africa benefit from these diverse topics in order to solve the challenges of unemployment in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Talking about unemployment, Suzanne, that's a broad topic.
Definitely.
And if you are to ask me, unemployment is, I would put it under social aspects. I would put it on a political aspect. Every political leader says, I'm going to create jobs for you.
Yeah.
Economic aspects. We're looking onto creating jobs for many people, but the job market, Suzanne, you would be in a better position to tell us more about the job market. They're just not there. So how does this summit address the issue of job markets? And probably cite a few examples with what ATE does in relation to, skills mismatch and stuff like that.
Yes, and one of the outcomes, actually, among many outcomes, I will just tell you one. One of the outcomes is to get an updated assessment of the progress made in implementing the blueprint for jobs in Africa. So there will be a number of experts. We are expecting, other than the social partner, we are expecting academia and experts from the field to be talking about the subject matter that they will be laid out. And therefore, Austin, from these discussions where you have great minds, discussing different matters that they're actually very important for Africa, definitely you will get some answers to put them forward and to push for them. Yeah. And meetings like this where private sector from across Africa and actually outside Africa, they meet and discuss, they share experiences, and these experiences are very important when we talk about issues of job creation. To come back to the subject of skills development, there are a number of initiatives as Tanzania that we have been doing. From the part of the government itself, the sixth government has really been pushing, there has been really pushing on the issue of skills development, and the partnership between the government and private sector and ATE, we have actually been championing, some of the initiatives on skills development through on-job training. We have a program that is being supported by Danish Industries and GIZ on vocational training. So we are actually collaborating with VETA, itself. We are actually working with the trade unions. So you see that they combine the effort that they're all coming up in order to solve the issue of skills development. And bit by bit, we have actually created some of the particulars, curriculums to solve an issue of on-job training, whereby the students from vocational trainings, they get attached to employers' premises to see what is really happening, and also the teachers to go to the industries and see, the industrial linkage is very important at this point, and you have heard many times, Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan insisting on industrial linkages, and so this is very important, and I believe that there could be many other outcomes that will come up and commitments from this summit, and we look forward.
I am looking at a situation, Suzanne, and I stand to be corrected, whereby you create a problem because you have a solution. So in order for you to probably sell your solution, you've got to create a problem. What brings skills mismatch in the market? So that if it's the curriculum, for instance, why don't we address the skills mismatch from the curriculum end, so that by the time students, for instance, graduate, they're already equipped with the necessary skills needed in the job market?
I think you've already heard from the government that the curriculum has already been revised. Yeah, now there is a piloting from the primary school to secondary school. There's a curriculum that has been actually revised, and this is actually these are some of the initiatives I'm sure the government is doing towards solving the issues of skills mismatch. However, to come back to what you're saying, you are creating a problem and what should be done, and when I want to come back to talk about private sector engagement, meaning it has to be there's a supply and demand driven. So it has to be demand driven. So, and we need to go to the specific and what is needed on the labor market that needs to be produced in our education systems. And therefore, in that way, you can say this is what is happening. For example, Austin, I'm very sure you're aware you don't need to do big research to understand that, since the outbreak of COVID-19, had taught us so much. What did it teach us? What did it teach you? It taught you how your phone can actually solve a lot of problems, in the sense that we could do meetings online, we could actually do business online. This is when we all ran into technology, for continuity, for business continuity. And then I'm sure we sat back and looked into say, okay, there's something missing into our daily way of doing things. But when the world was shut down, probably in one evening, and we actually adjusted to remote working, we were doing social distancing and isolation. However, business continued. Yes, there was a struggle, but business continued. And now people are still doing business, doing meetings online. So there is something that we have learned from COVID-19, and these challenges have taught out how to solve the same problems, and then we are heading forward. And this is why the summit also will be discussing issues of technology for development, and then specifically AI.
Talking about technology for development, artificial intelligence, what the trends, I would call them, we're facing today. Susan, in relation to the opportunities now, is Tanzania ready, in your humble, honest opinion? Are we ready to really embrace AI and IT and ICT into our day-to-day operations? We are. I know your answer is we are already doing that. But in the limited spaces, Susan, you and me are able to communicate and go to Teams and Zooms and all that over the phones and computers. But looking onto the spectrum, we have 62 million Tanzanians. Is Tanzania ready?
Is Tanzania ready?
Yes.
I think we are ready, but we need to talk about the mechanisms, on making sure there is an access, to everyone to contribute, or using the channels of technology in order to do business, in whatever way that you do. Let me ask you, Austin, we are using a mobile phone to do transactions,
right,
even banking transactions. And I'm bringing that as a very simple example, in the sense that from a person, from me and you, who sits in the office, from a business person probably with a capital of, a minimum capital, they will still transact online. Nowadays, you could sit here and order something online, and pay and get it delivered somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, get it delivered.
Yeah.
And from that delivery, it goes probably across the country, and you haven't met anybody, and that has been done. So if you say it's ready, if already it's been in use at the minimum, and everybody is managing their own, from business, from personal and socialized. If you're all managing that way, can we really say we are not ready? I think we are. Let's talk about the mechanism on supporting that. That is something that we need to be probably talking about. If there's enough access, the cost of, technology, data bundles, maybe we can discuss that. But whether we are ready or not, we are already there and we're already using it.
Excellent. You are listening and watching Austin Makani with What Matters, and today I'm delighted to have this podcast with Madam Suzanne Ndomba, the CEO of Association of Tanzania Employers, looking onto the privilege that the country has to host the 7th African Social Partners Summit due in a couple of days. On an easy note, Susan, on an easy note, just to divert from the discussion, then we'll come back to it. If Susan given the opportunity to invite 3 people for a cup of coffee, dead or alive, those people could be dead, who have gone already ahead of us, or they're still alive. Who would those 3 people be and why?
Wow, very, very. I didn't see that coming.
You have a list.
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, thank you very much. Maybe you say this is so obvious. I would, if I had a privilege, because this is a privilege to invite someone, I'll invite Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan, to have a cup of coffee.
Why?
And I mean, why? First of all, she's the president of the United Republic of Tanzania, and 2, a woman president. And I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions to ask her, not only on business Tanzania, but also, she's a woman president. Why wouldn't I have questions to ask, as woman leadership? I am sure there's so much that I'll be able to ask her and talk about. Another person that I would really like to, not importance, I would really like to, you said dead or alive, yeah?
Yes, even if they've gone ahead of us.
Yes, my grandfather.
Wow.
Yeah, my grandfather. He died early on when I was still in primary school. So, Amiri Daudi Mbaga. I would have really loved, to ask him so many questions, because I remember the early childhood when I was visiting, the villages. We would just have conversation. Whenever he came home in the evening in the village, when he walked in, you hear him, kutoka huko migombani unamsikia anaanza anaimba muziki wake, anawaita wajukuu. So, and I was young, so now I think I would have had a lot of questions to ask him. And the third person, I know she's passed. I would have loved to talk to Richie Dude, or probably ERC, and I was not, I did not visit, I've never attended one of the Sauti za Busara, the exhibitions in Zanzibar to witness her singing. But really, that voice, heavy, and it's almost cracking when she sings, yeah. Ana wimbo wake mmoja I really love, Jua Toka. I love that song.
Okay.
I really love that song. So I normally listen to her songs, and then I just wonder what was in her mind, when she was singing those songs, and to get that reach of the,
I'm happy to say that I had a privilege to meet with her.
Good for you.
I had an interview with her. I worked with her. I did once work for a media station in Zanzibar.
Okay.
So I did several interviews with her.
Wow.
She was a wonderful person. Be rest assured.
That voice.
And when you sit by her and you talk to her, she's that motherly. But it's interesting and sad as well that in order for you to get her to talk, you've got to give her a pack of cigarettes. May God rest her soul.
I would have bought several of them.
That's Bikidude. Thank you, Susan. Let's just go back to the summit again. So, at the end of the summit, and for you to look onto the summit and say, this summit was a great success, what are the indicators that you would look onto and say, yes, we did it?
The indicators that are looking, of course, at this point, numbers participation is very good. Delegates all start coming in, starting from Monday, Tuesday, across Africa and outside. So you say people have confirmed they are all coming. You have not prepared the summit and there's no turnout. Yeah, you have a chief guest. Yeah, the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, His Excellency Dr. Philip Isidore Mpango. We are going to have the Minister of State in Prime Minister's office, Employment Youth with People with Disability, Professor Joyce Ndalichako. She's going to be there. We will be having the Secretary General of Employer Organization, International Organization for Employers. We will be having the Deputy Secretary General of International Trade Union Congress, from Geneva. We'll be having the Deputy Regional Director of ILO from Abidjan. The UN representative, country representative is going to be there. So, and a number of important delegation, but also from the other social partners from across. We are going to have the President of Business Africa as well. So, the meeting is happening and waiting for delegation to arrive. But also, we are going to have the invited guests from Tanzania itself, across business, academia, and government. For me, what will be important after the discussions, because we are going to have different panels. Out of these panels, we have a panel on social dialogue. We have a panel on informality and unemployment. We have a panel discussion on artificial intelligence, and then access to finance. And the next day, you will be having discussions after the panel. We have to come out with the recommendations and guidelines, on a number of subjects that will be coming out. So to have those recommendations and the guidelines, because at the end of the day, these guidelines and recommendations have been used, to set standards and practice among businesses, and also recommendations to the higher levels on where we're going, because that has got to be there. And then you'd say, okay, the objectives of the summit, we wanted to discuss this number of topics, and we did. After that discussion, these are the recommendations and the objectives of the summit have been met. The implementations will be different, but at least you will have a tangible document to come out.
Okay, we're drawing closer to the end of the podcast interview, Susan, and I'm delighted once again to have had the privilege to have this podcast interview with you. But allow me to again understand, not to bring the subject back.
Yeah.
But this is the 7th summit.
Yes.
Are they happening every year? And looking on to what has transpired in the past, what is it that you would hold at hand and say, the 6th summit, this is what we had aspired to do and we did. Or the 5th summit, this is what we had planned to do or we resolved to do, and as a result, we've started this and that. So first, are these happening every year? And looking on to what has transpired already in the past, what is it that you're very proud of? That, we've done 6 summits, this is the 7th, and from the 6th, this is what emanated. Could be a policy outcome, could be an intervention, for instance, the curriculum, could be the emanation, the commencement of the cohorts that ATE is implementing. And later on, my last question will probably talk about the cohort, and then you'll tell us more about the books you like reading. I'm scared though.
Thank you, Austin. Yes, this is the 7th summit. Just to bring you back to the previous summits. The first time the summit, previously the summit in 2013 and 2015 was held in Casablanca. Mm-hmm. And then the second one was in 2016 in Tunisia. And in 2017 it was in Nigeria. In 2018 it was in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. 2020 was in Lagos. And 2024 in Dar es Salaam.
Okay.
Yeah.
You skipped 3 years.
Yeah,
in between.
COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah, it was skipped. And in all these summits, different topics were discussed and the outcomes of the summit were discussed. However, in this year, there is the discussions on the blueprint for jobs in Africa. Yeah, that the agreement that was set in the previous summit will also be brought forward because as the general outcome in different topics that will be discussed.
Okay.
So normally the summit also takes stock of what happened. You know, for example, there will be a discussion. They said to look into the free trade area. That will also be a discussion in the summit. Mm-hmm. You know, to discuss understand the scope of existing regional and international policies and initiatives, such as implementation of Africa Continental Free Area, AU Agenda for 2063, and the ILO Africa Regional Implementation Plan, and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there will be checks and balances to look where we are with this one. Mm-hmm. And this actually the very continuous discussion that have been happening before, and these are the discussions that will actually be looking in and carrying them forward. So these are a number of discussions that have been discussed before. They will also be discussed at this summit. So to look into, for me, it will be interesting to look into what is this, because first of all, it's my first time attending the summit.
Wow.
Attending the summit and hosting.
And hosting at the same time.
And hosting it. So personally, there'll be a lot of things for myself to learn, you know, as a CEO of Agile.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Suzanne, to as far as the summit is concerned, there's a lot still to learn.
Yes.
And since it's an invitation only, I believe people will the ones that you've invited to attend the summit will literally consider the fact that behind them are very many Africans, are very many people of the world, because I know it's an international conference, so representation of
yes.
all the countries in the world. So they ought to reconsider that they're representing many of us and come up with solutions
yes.
that will address the challenges that we face. Now, just to wind up, three more final simple questions, Suzanne.
Yes.
One is you spoke about the cohort. Do you
yes.
want to tell us a little bit about the cohort and how do girls, I understand it's only for girls, I stand to be corrected, how do they get the opportunity to join the cohorts?
The registrations are open as we speak now for cohort 10. That will start immediately after the graduation in March. They can be recommended by their employers. Yeah, so this is something the employers can actually put on their training programs for the year, you know, and also to support the gender equality aspect in that level of, you know, at the employer space, and to give opportunity for women to advance on a number of training, including, you know, the leadership trainings. Just to speak a bit about the course itself, the course is 9 months and it's got 3 modules.
Okay.
Board competence, to be able to have the capacity to sit in boards but also conduct meetings generally and understanding the subject and the dynamics of boards as women, you know.
Okay.
Then you have rhetoric. This is an art of communication and speaking. And you have the leadership itself. So it's extensively, it's run in 9 months, but because it's an executive course, it's not classes every day. In 2 months we meet 4 or 5 times, and we are actually doing this course in collaboration with Osami.
Okay.
Yeah, we are doing it with Osami, but the background of the course itself is from Norway. We took from our sister organization in Norway, the NHO, Confederation of Origin Enterprise. They brought the course and did the TOTs, and then now we are conducting the course. Actually, this is the 9th year that we're conducting the course. So next year, 2025, we'll be celebrating 10 years of the course itself.
Excellent,
and
congratulations.
I'm very excited. So employers can recommend, you can be recommended, and we have a number of our members that have actually been put forward, in large numbers, the women in their organizations. And most of women have got good feedback. Some of them have actually got higher positions, and some of them not necessarily higher position, but they got in boards. And some of them, they've developed different skills in leadership, board competence, and rhetoric. And just to inform you, I was in cohort 1. So in the list of those women, I was in cohort 1 and role number 1.
Oh wow! Congratulations! Yeah. You did mention at the very beginning that you do read a lot of books.
I do.
One, because as a lawyer, reading is part and parcel. I think you do 97% reading and referencing etc. Of the books you've read, I know very many, Suzanne, which is your favorite book, and what lessons do you draw from that book?
That's very difficult to answer. Favorite. Let me tell you my favorites.
I'm sure that those favorites have the top.
Have the top favorites.
Yeah.
Also, as I said, right now I'm reading One by One by Ruth Wire. She's a criminal writer. Ruth Wire, she's English. One by One is a criminal thriller. I'm reading this. I've read most of her release. I think this is the latest. If you find there's another one, she should really kindly please bring it for me.
Sure.
Yes. And this is outside what I normally read. I read the law reports like that, and I read, other things. So I read the criminal books, thriller, but I also even watch them. I also read history. Yeah, I like to read history books, as in novels. There are books that are actually they're written with so much history. Yeah. I'm reading a book called The Covenant of Water. It's set in Kerala, in India.
Okay.
And it's set in it's 1900 to 1970.
Oh wow.
Since the English colony in India. So I'm reading. It's got so much history and what in my background. I did study in India, so I can actually just really so much relate to it. Talking about the Indian culture and talking about Kerala has got lots of water. There is so much culture into it when you read certain books. But also in terms of history, I've also read another book which I had finished. It's a series. It's called 7 Seas. I set in different continents. It was in Brazil. It went to Spain and UK, and it was written by actually an Irish writer. So, but above all, you talked about my favorite book.
Mm-hmm.
The favorite book that I've read and I would recommend to many women to read is Women and Leadership.
Women and Leadership.
Women and Leadership.
Okay.
Yeah. This book is written by Julia Gillard. Yeah. And Ngozi, the Director General of WTO right now.
Okay.
Yes. It's written by Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. This book is talk about real lives and really lessons. It's actually interviews of women in highest office.
Okay.
Yeah, you talk about presidents and prime ministers. So there's an interview of Joyce Banda, the former president of Malawi.
Right.
There's an interview of Ellen Sanfras. She was the former president of Liberia. Yes. There's interview of even Theresa May.
Wow.
Yeah, the former prime minister of Britain. And then there's an interview of Michelle, if I remember her name correctly. She was the former prime minister of, I think it's Chile, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
But also Australia. And that interview Jacinda. She was the prime minister of New Zealand.
New Zealand.
Yeah, the one
right.
who I think she. Yeah, Jacinda. And there is an interview by. She was the former president of IMF. I remember her name again. So it talks about You talk. Hillary Clinton is also in the book.
Wow.
These are interviews.
So you get to read from the horse's mouth.
Yes, you talk about interviews.
Okay.
So these are interviews of the women who have actually led.
Movers and shakers.
Yes. There's
Right.
an interview of Christine Lagarde. These are good books.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just my very final question, Suzanne. What is your favorite quotation? I hope now you have one.
Oh, yeah. People will forget what you said, but people will never forget how you made them feel. By Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou.
Yes.
Wonderful. People may forget what you say, but will never forget
How you made them feel.
how you made them feel. And this is what marks the end of the Austin Makani and What Matters podcast. Thanks to you, Suzanne Ndomba, for a wonderful discussion. This is coming to the world at large, so that at least those who aspire to be the next Suzanne Ndomba, you may not know, but there are so many people who look up to you. There's so many people who look up to women leaders, women in position. There's so many people who look onto Her Excellency Samia Suluhu Hassan. Just like you said, you want to have a cup of coffee with her. Looking onto the cohorts, nurturing, empowering women to become unstoppable in positions. And I believe this podcast will speak to many girls who just hide out there and say, no, that position is for so and so. And they will not even relate. But you've assisted, as we spoke about the 7th Summit, but you've assisted many of them to really come out and say, yes, they can be. So grateful. Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting us.
Thank you very much, Austin.
All the
You're
very
welcome.
best
Thank
on
you.
the forthcoming summit.
See you on 7th.
Thank you so much.